get this thing done. Last evening, we completed a number of articles. The next article for us to look at would be Article 36, Community Preservation Fund, Conservation Fund. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town appropriate the sum of $200,000 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues and place said amount in the Conservation Fund.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded.
Hello again. Welcome back. I'm John Campbell, 29 Spruce Hill Drive, and here on behalf of your Community Preservation Committee. And I know you all came just for this article, so let's make it quick. This town meeting has voted a number of times in favor of placing CPA money into the Conservation Fund. Once there, it gives the Conservation Commission and the Open Space Committee the ability to move quickly when property becomes available outside of the town meeting cycle. But you must know that any expenditure of money or any money put to conservation efforts must meet the CPA guidelines just the same. So this is essentially to replenish some of the conservation fund. We used nearly all of it last town meeting to save the Whitney Street property, and we've used it for many good uses in years past, including the Green Street Meadow, the former Shunderland, many other parcels around the Mount Pisgah conservation areas, and for creating additional trails and recreation. So I urge your approval of the article, and by the way, this helps meet our 10% minimum toward open space and recreation.
Thank you. May I hear from the Appropriations Committee on Article 36, please?
The Appropriations Committee voted in the majority to recommend approval of Article 36.
And may I hear from Financial Planning, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee, by a majority, recommends approval as Article 36.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on Article 36?
Mike Shaka, 120 Maynard Street. Question for the appropriations and the finance. Can we get some insight on what the dissenter's rationale was?
I don't recall. What was he? I do not recall. Okay. There was one dissenter, 5 for, 1 against.
So that dissenter's not here this evening?
I don't recall who that person was.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Saka. We can't remember the details of it. It was not a significant objection, and a particular reason. It was one of the members voted against it.
Okay. All right. So I guess my concern on this is that, you know, we have a history as a town of taking monies from this fund and making acquisitions that don't always have a purpose or a vision. There's no necessarily defined intent, and it's just kind of, you know, we buy it and we have it, and it's, you know, we stick it in a corner, and then we have to come back and we have to replenish the funds that we spent, you know, in some cases willy-nilly. So I'm a little hesitant to be in favor of, you know, keep funding something that, you know, is going to, you know, bad assets. So I guess I'm a no.
Thank you. Microphone A, please.
Good evening.
Ooh.
My name is Aaron Hutchins, 91 Brigham Street. Mr. Moderator, I've come with prepared remarks, concise, to the point. I rise to make my voice heard during this lengthy and tumultuous town meeting. Regrettably, my schedule has prevented me from joining in person these last 3 nights, but I have participated via technology, so thank you, Northborough Cable.
Amen.
Even tonight, I am unable to stay beyond this article because I am committed to volunteer for another organization. I have been a decades-long volunteer on Northborough boards and committees, everything from the Select Board to the little-known Algonquin Naming Subcommittee. My most recent service was with the Town Office Feasibility Committee, where I was the only member to vote against relocating the town offices to White Cliffs. I monitor board and committee meetings to stay abreast of current issues facing Northborough. I know of the capital projects looming. I know of interest and efforts to vitalize the downtown. I know of the many unfunded state mandates that Northborough has been forced to enact. I curse OPEB every time I pay my quarterly taxes, which were due again today. Northborough's legislative priorities have been identical since I was on the select board over a decade ago. My taxes are already at the high point of the so-called heart attack graph presented by Mr. Little. Northborough's new fire station, while needed, was too large in scope.
Yes.
According to information presented at the August 2024 Financial Summit, it takes approximately $30 million of revenue to lower the tax bill by $70. So I question how many $30 million projects can the citizens of Northborough expect to come to town in the coming years, particularly when we continue to zone conservation lands. We still don't know whether the Anza purchase is going to require significant environmental remediation. I'm going on record as saying it's going to come back to haunt us. Purchasing more conservation land does not align with what should be Northborough's focus of fiscal management. Accordingly, I cannot support Article 36. Cost of living since the pandemic has risen with incomes that do not match the increase. National debt continues, state aid decreases. Some suggest this summer there's a greater than 50% possibility of a recession. I am dismayed at the current state of administration in the town, and but for the restriction placed upon me by my current employer preventing me from holding public office, my name would be on the ballot. There are hard times and hard decisions to be made. I am not afraid to make the unpopular decision, as perhaps evidenced by my opposition to this article, but this town cannot continue to be all things to all residents, and this is what it has been for the last 3 years. Select board meetings now average 3+ hours. The town meeting is on its 4th night. During discussion on the budget article and proposed amendment on night 1, the chair of the select board said residents should have come to discussions to, quote, convince us. This sentiment is exactly why we're in this predicament. Our elected representatives are out of touch. We can and do better. Northborough needs financial, fiscal management that is going to be in favor of tax reduction and business increase. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Microphone B, please.
Yes, in the name of, give all highest honor to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and on the basis of his principles. Listen, this is once again a matter of values, right? Which is not a measure of some arbitrary mathematical equation, as of course defined by the erroneous, the taxes, the financial mechanisms used on the question 47 yesterday. His illustrious Royal Majesty and Associates, see, the problem is that they put all $47 million into a fire station, which is completely unnecessary, right? Okay? But they give us $200,000 for open space is good. We need more open space. We need more trees. We need more buildings. Okay? We need more construction. We need more labor. Okay? We could increase the population of Northborough. Okay, with, yes, sound financial management. What that means, okay, is getting rid of these C-suite distant executives in Goldman Sachs and all these people, get rid of them and have a localized financial system, okay, that can finance construction projects, moving in laborers, having more, we need less administrators, we need more laborers in town to build things. There's ways you can build like small microstructures with local resources with very little capital investment. See, the issue is we need to take all the money and put it into building like a works progress administration with actual laborers, okay, and also getting rid of all these clerical jobs, just measuring and calculating figures, okay, it's all nonsense, okay, we need to, so anything involving buying public assets, having town-owned properties, building more housing, okay, more open space, we've put a plan forward for it. Yes, see, if we were in charge of town, okay, the taxes would completely decrease, okay, but we would increase the welfare, we would have more government services, we wouldn't be spending on a military operation, which is the fire station, for $47 million, and it's going to be like $70 or $80 million. But this is a set of priorities that you have all this money for spying and defense, but yeah, $200,000 for open space. I say change the paradigm. I say you put all the money in preservation, real education, and you put money in building things and constructing things, and not financial measurement, bogus math, and financial schemes, which are all notational values. The economy is physical. It is not illusory and mathematical. So that's what I have to say about that. So obviously I approve all these articles. If we were administrators in the towns, we would cut all your taxes unbelievably, and we would just focus on putting trees, and we would just build buildings everywhere. And we just have small
You have
microstructures.
15 seconds.
And we say down with Wall Street and down with the banks and down with usury, all interest on loans. And we'll explain to you what that is. Point of order.
To the microphone, please.
Michael Shaka, 120 Maynard Street. As governed by Robert's rule, Mr. Moderator, speakers are being given unequal time, which violates the rules of fairness. I was cut off yesterday at 2 minutes and 32 seconds. I watched the tape. You called time. Just now, you cut him off at 2 minutes, 21 seconds. Mrs. Howland yesterday was granted 7 minutes and 45 seconds. You cannot, at your discretion, at your sole discretion, against Robert's rule, dictate.
Sir, let me educate you a bit. We do not go by Robert's rules. We go by town meeting time.
So the town of Northborough does not adhere to Robert's rule?
Most municipalities in this Commonwealth do not.
Okay, well, in public record, it says that you do. So regardless, I test the level of fairness, just as it was with the fire department when you cut everybody off. This is not how town meeting is supposed to operate. Whether you like or dislike what the person says does not determine the amount of time they're granted, sir.
Sir, I will let you... No more outbursts, please. I will let you know that I have no bias, regardless of who's speaking. My job is orderly process of the meeting. Now, we have a process in place to make sure the timing is fair and equitable. If we missed it by 10 or 15 seconds, that was not intentional.
Are you keeping a timer up there?
Yes, we are.
Then why was he shut off at 2 minutes and whatever it was, 2 minutes and 21 seconds?
Because...
And I was shut off at 2 minutes and 32 seconds.
Sir, this is not the time or place to be debating this.
Where is it then? When is it?
It is either when there's a break or what have you, but you're taking valuable time away from the people who have given up their evening.
And it's in the spirit of fairness for these people that we should not be having a mockery of this discourse. And that's what this is. It's a mockery.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay, very well.
Microphone A, please.
I'm sorry I didn't bring my clown hat today, so I'll keep mine brief. Mr. Campbell, Andrew Clark, 493 Main Street. I'm also on the Community Preservation Commission. How much we are obligated to set aside some of the CPC funds every year towards conservation or open space. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. 10% at least of the new revenues coming in.
So we have to set aside money for this purpose, irregardless of how we feel about taxes or open space or buildings or Goldman and Sachs. So the next point is, I'm sorry, but the town every year, or the purpose of one of the main objectives of the community preservation when it was established was the preservation of open space. And it was brought to the town and approved, if I recollect, for the purpose of preserving. And we have done that significantly, and it has been with the town's approval. So I just want to remind the people that we have to do this money. We have to put this money aside anyway. So this is the most effective methodology for using it for its intended purpose, which is getting it into the conservation fund, which is the best agency for purchasing and acquiring conservation land. Is that correct?
Thank you. What you said.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Actually, can I ask the gentleman behind you to go first? You've already spoken.
Mr. Moderator, Ken Pickard, 78 Whitney Street. I'd like to make a motion to move the question.
Motion has been made to move the question. I will ask you, sir, do you have something that's very pertinent to this particular article?
No, I think that, I want to know, does the Constitution of the United States, freedom of speech takes priority over
That
time
has-
optimization?
that does not
Yes, it
have-
does, because you're worshiping money
No,
as a
it-
religion.
that
Freedom of
doesn't-
speech is the First Amendment.
Thank you.
Not business. Freedom of speech.
Thank you, Mike.
So we have on the floor a motion to move the question. And we've done that a couple of times this week, so I think people know the process as far as what's going on. We will vote on moving the question first. And once we do that, oh, by the way, that's a two-thirds majority vote. And once we do that, depending on what the decision is on the motion to move the question, we will go back to Article 36 and in one way or another. The voting is now open. Remember, if you haven't pushed your button at all tonight, you may have to vote twice to get the thing started. I think the voting has slowed. Let's take a look at the results. And the motion to move the question passes by the required two-thirds vote. So we move back to Article 36. And we have the slide up for that now. It's a majority vote, and the voting is open. And can we see the results, please? Article 36 passes by the majority vote. Article 37, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town appropriate the sum of $10,758 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues to the Northborough Historic District Commission for the purchase and installation of a commemorative monument celebrating Northborough's contribution in the American Revolution.
Motion has been made and seconded.
Okay, let's see how this one goes. This is a very timely request from our Historic Commission for a monument to honor those in Northborough and the Minutemen who served the call on April 19, 1775. You can see the proposed text on the screen behind me. I'll save time by not reading all that. This is a mock-up of the size of the monument, not the actual one, and one proposed location. It is not fixed in stone, no pun intended, where that would go, but this is the suggestion that it would be in the memorial area to the west of our current beautiful town common. Here's another mock-up just showing the, you know, if you're not getting it, the area where the monument is proposed to be mounted. That is it.
Thank you. Any questions, discussion on Article 37, please? Yes.
Yes, I absolutely support this. I support all conservation, things. Mr. George, is there time limits prescribed by any law? Like, where is that coming from? I just want to know the answer to that question. I think that the Assembly notes to know that if there's time limits prescribed by bylaws, like, where is the notion of the time limits come from? I'm just curious. So.
Time limits are established by the moderator. They're arbitrary. They're not arbitrary. Everyone has the same limits. Everyone has the same limits.
Like, is there a number? For the society that's mathematical, right? Is there a precise number about time limits?
Everyone has been given the same or very much near the same time allotment.
But like show the measurements, right? The scientific measurements, the mathematical measurements.
No.
There's no legal time limit, though.
No.
There's no law you're citing. It's arbitrary.
I'm given the authority to set up the time frame. No, you're drifting outside the bounds.
Mike, thank you.
Microphone B, please.
Good evening. Lisa Maselli, 13 Maple Street. I love it. Location, I'm glad that you said isn't set in stone, so to speak. I'd like to see it more off to the side and not in the dead center of that other beautiful monument. But thank you for putting this together, and I think it's great.
Thank you, Lisa.
I can't hear. Is that on? It is on. Any other discussion, questions? Hearing none, I think we're prepared to vote on Article 37. And this is a majority vote, and the voting is open. Looks like we have completed the voting. May we see the results, please? Article 37 passes by the required majority vote. Article 38, please.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town appropriate the sum of $93,940 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues to the Northborough Planning Department for design, bid preparation, and construction administration services related to the careful removal of the non-historic 1960s additions to the White Cliffs Mansion and the installation of temporary watertight infill at impacted locations.
Motion has been made and seconded.
It's been 9 years since, at this town meeting, by more than a two-thirds majority of voters, the town approved to purchase the White Cliffs property and save it from demolition. Since then, there's been no shortage of opinions on what we could have done, should have done, what we should do. But that being said, it's time to move it forward, one way or the other. According to the architect's report commissioned by the original revenue voted at town meeting in 2016, in terms of water infiltration, the kitchen and the ballroom and the east additions provide the greatest threat to the historic fabric of the White Cliffs. The plan is that the additions shown here in red in this graphic are to be demolished and removed safely, and that after that, the mansion is buttoned up, secured for moisture in a way that sets the stage for its next use and its next stage of refurbishing. This will eliminate the major source of mold and mildew that is deteriorating the property, rapidly. It will be done in a way that is consistent with the Mass Historic Commission's regulations regarding historic restoration. It makes a lot more sense to think of using White Cliffs and to possibly partnering with someone to use White Cliffs with a smaller footprint that is primarily the main mansion. And as I said, this article and the effort is the first stage to propel the restoration, prepare the mansion for reuse, whether it be sold, leased, or maintained by the town. At this point, the voters said we should buy it. They said we should save it. Once again, everyone has different opinions, but at this point, it's a town property that we have to prepare to preserve and prepare to find the next step on. We urge your approval of this article so that we can have the resources in place for the engineering study that would be required for the next phase. The next phase could be the demolition, or it could be partnering with someone who will help us with that. One way or the other, this sets the stage for that. If we have to come back at next town meeting and talk about expenses for the demolition, I should tell you that the Community Preservation Commission has planned for this since the time it recommended buying White Cliffs. There are the resources in place, such as I spoke about last night, where we get over $800,000 in new revenue every year. The state matches that on average 35% year over year. And we have reserves as well. So we have the resources within CPA to continue to afford to do this, and that was the argument we made then, and it holds now.
Okay.
Microphone B, please.
Eric Martin, 32 Weston Terrace. It seems a little backwards to me that we're dealing with this article before 43, where we're not quite sure what the fate is. So I move that can we hold this article until 43? Not exactly sure the right way to say that.
Okay, we're passing over Article 43.
We're passing over 43.
Correct. Actually, we're passing over 43, 44, 45, and 46. No. What? Yeah.
Okay, so my main concern is without knowing, I mean, while I understand this is a good step, if we're selling this, when you go to sell your house, you don't fix up the floors and everything else for the next person. It's you don't put the money in that you wouldn't do before your thing. So it just seems a little, and there might be reasons why that I'm not understanding. Obviously, my house does not compare to town-owned property.
Could I take your analogy a little further?
Yeah, please.
If you were selling your house and you knew it wouldn't pass inspection and would be deemed unsafe, you wouldn't sell it. So there is a certain logic in this that the building needs to be prepared for the next phase, whether the town uses it, whether it's sold, whether it's leased. And we need to start taking action down that path because it's deteriorating rapidly and it'll be worth nothing at all. This step was recommended before, as I said in the beginning. Should we have done this long ago? Yeah. But the time is now. By giving the authorization here, once again, we're using CPA reserves and money. It doesn't take anything away from the other initiatives that you're voting on in town, any other cash sources, free cash. Doesn't raise the taxes any more than we're already talking about from your property surcharge. But by taking this step now, we give the town the means to move down that path. If during that time there's a proposal for a new partner that we hope may come soon, this is in place, it can be negotiated, can be used as a tool to negotiate. We'll do this part, you pay for the demolition, or we pay for X and you move it on. It's probably the way it's going to go, one way or the other, if we are to lease or sale the property. So this does not commit us one way or the other, but it's really a matter of taking care of the property that we do own at the moment.
So just thank you for that clarification. So just to say it a different way, what we're just trying to do is basically stop the bleeding, right? We're just trying to keep it from deteriorating any further, is what you're saying.
That's a fair analogy, yes.
And this is a required thing to keep it from deteriorating further.
Correct. And I'm not to be unclear. This won't pay for all of the work to do that. There has to be a massive amount of preparation and pre-engineering. Even though you're not building it up, you have to take away a lot of material and do it in a safe manner, meet regulations, not make it worse. So there will be a phase two. We don't have a dollar figure at the moment for what that may cost, but this is step one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone A, please.
Excuse me, Leslie Harrison, 28 Moore Lane. I'm on the Open Space Committee, Community Preservation Committee, and Historic. John, don't we also need to do this in order to have the preservation restriction? Since we use CPA funds for the building, it's required, correct?
This article does not address it, but you're right in that when we bought the building with CPA revenue, and this will come up again in the next articles, we automatically placed a historic restriction on the property. It's required by any asset that you buy with CPA funds, land or buildings, for instance. So whenever we preserve land, it gets a conservation restriction, so it's not built on in perpetuity. Same would go here. This must maintain a historic nature, you know, in accordance to regulations.
And with those two additions, it does not qualify, correct? The additions have to be removed in order to have that. Is that not true?
I don't know that I can answer that
Okay.
fully, whether it's, whether we would need to remove it or not to make it historic. We only know that those pieces are not historic and therefore don't need to be restored and they're not worth restoring.
Microphone A, please.
Norm Corbin, 35 Whitney Street. For those who don't know it, I've been involved with White Cliffs for pushing 11 years now. This is a necessary next step. We really need to find a way to button up the building. We really want to, in my opinion, we really want to make it look good in the sense of having someone purchase it or lease it in the future. And this is a very important step for that. Thank you.
Microphone B, please.
Yeah, I have no idea why we're just tearing down things in accordance with what regulations instead of just putting that money, instead of doing a feasibility study. Again, for the millionth time, the problem with deference to experts and all these specialists coming in, doing their studies, and nothing ever gets done. Why can't you hire people to just start renovating? This building will last forever. It's not going to deteriorate. This is once again the problem of using arbitrary notational values, future values, and blah, blah, blah. All financial fraud. You can hire somebody to go in there and make this beautiful building. People can live in here right now. I don't know what regulations are preventing you from having people. Oh, because it's all fraud. It is fraud. And good job on Mitch for purchasing this property. You can renovate this beautiful building right now. So why do you need to tear down things? Why can't you put that money to building things up? Why do you have to build a new fire station when you can renovate this beautiful building? What regulations are preventing you from doing so? And if so, I'll go through every single one and I'll figure out the solution to this. But it's ridiculous that we tear down things instead of building things up. That beautiful space that can be used, and we put all our financial assets into, you know, bogus funds and, you know, all these statistical specialists, useless technology that decays during planned obsolescence. But you can't renovate a building. You take years and years and years when there's people who need housing and people who need things. It's absolutely erroneous. But Mr. Campbell, you know, you are a great man though, and you're trying your best. But the notion of instead of destroying, it's, you know, of mold, blah, blah, blah. Go in there and just fix up this beautiful building. Have volunteers do it. We don't need experts or professionals. They don't care. They just want to make money off the stuff. They don't care about renovating stuff, but all you people think about is money, money, money. There's physical labor everywhere. Okay? Let's think outside the box. Okay? Let's stop using these notational values. They're all arbitrary and illusory.
Thank you, Mike.
Any other discussion, questions on Article 30? Sorry, I flipped my page. On Article 38. Hearing none. This is what we're voting on. And it is a simple majority vote. The voting is open. Looks like the voting is complete. May we see the results, please? Okay, Article 38 passes by the required majority vote.
Thank you.
Article 39, please.
I move the town appropriate the sum of $166,575 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues for fiscal year 2026 debt service and expenses associated with the acquisition of the property at 167 Main Street.
I didn't hear a second. Thank you.
So as a reminder, when we bought the property in 2016, a portion needed to be funded by borrowing, but we did it through borrowing against CPA revenues. so it did not affect any other debt service or limits in town. It's been a very affordable, as I mentioned before. Every year, we've had plenty of new revenue and reserves to not only pay this bond, but do many, many other great projects. This is the 8th payment. There'll be only 2 more, so the loan's almost paid up, if you will, for the building that, as I said, we own it. This has to be approved by using CPA funds, and if not, the town would need to find another source to pay the bond. You can't get out of the loan. So again, CPA revenues make this affordable for us. Thank you.
Any questions, any discussion about Article 38? Hearing none, let's look.
I also want to ask, if your computer systems are so great, why can't you tell who voted on this question? I mean, seriously, if this computer is so reliable, right, you don't even have the information who voted. You don't have persons, because it's all being conducted in secret ex parte. And I just more things. But I support all these community reservations, all these notions of debt service and all these contracts and stuff like that. They are all nothing but fraud, 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 and I will repudiate all debts entirely. Tell Wall Street to go pound sand.
Yes.
Could you please ask the Appropriations and Financial Planning for their recommendations?
I will do that, yes.
Thank you.
Can I hear from Financial Planning on Article 39, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee by a majority recommends approval of this Article 39.
And from Appropriations, please.
Appropriations Committee unanimously recommended approval of Article 39.
I think we're ready to vote on Article 39. It's a majority vote, and the voting is open. And it looks like the voting is complete. And Article 39 passes by the majority vote. Article 40.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town appropriate the sum of $42,000 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues to the Northborough Community Preservation Committee for expenses associated with the implementation of the Community Preservation Act, including but not limited to clerical assistance, office supplies, property surveys, appraisals, attorney's fees, and other professional services, recording fees, printing, and other necessary and proper expenses for fiscal year 2026.
Motion has been made and seconded.
So in the CPA legislation, we're allowed to allocate up to 5% of the projected new revenue every year to cover expenses that may be needed. And these are for things to do the business of the committee. So it may be for property appraisals, to evaluate an application, or other professional services. We pay community coalition dues from that. Anything not spent in this goes back into the unreserved savings account, if you will. So we tend to ask for the full 5% each year, just to give us that buffer in case it's needed for some project that comes up.
Thank you. Any questions, any discussion about Article 40?
I wonder if that tax fraud with St. Cobain, which they're going to give the town a very, very tiny little, devote a little bit to charity, just a tiny bit. Okay, take all the future tax revenue. Hear me out. All that money, and they're probably putting it in the fire station and paying all that money for the fire station, their own police protection and stuff like that, and giving these people peanuts. Due to that contract with St. Cobain, doing the fraudulent contracts with some C-suite executives, and who's responsible for that? Want to sell this town out to some C-suite executives and
Sir, you need to stay within the boundaries of the particular article. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, are we prepared to vote on Article 40? Yes, we are. Once again, a majority vote, and the voting is open. And it looks like the voting is completed. Article 40 passes with the required majority vote. Article
Thank you.
41.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $15,000 for use by the Northborough Historical Commission to support the commemoration of the 250th anniversary of Northborough's role in the Revolutionary War, to be transferred from free cash to be available for expenditure in FY 2025.
Motion has been made and seconded.
Thank you. My name is Bob Light. I'm the chair of the Historical Commission. We are now in the semi-quincentennial portion of the American Revolution, which is a fancy way of saying the 250th anniversary of events leading up to and during the Revolution. Massachusetts and several towns and cities in the Commonwealth have been preparing for these various celebrations. Turns out that Northborough has a very rich history in leading up to the Revolutionary War and during the Revolutionary War. And there's a long list, but I just want to cover some key highlights. Northborough actually had its own Tea Party 2 months after the Boston Tea Party, where an unfortunate tea merchant was passing through town, was set upon by Northborough residents, and his tea was burned in protest of the Tea Act. About a year later, Northborough voted to equip a company of Minutemen, and there was 50 Minutemen that on April 19th, 1775, heard the fighting in Lexington and marched on to Concord and Cambridge to surround Boston and participate in the ultimate evacuation of Boston. 2 months later, they actually went on and fought at the Battle of Bunker Hill. One big event happened the following year, June 3rd, 1776. The town of Northborough actually voted for independence if that was to be the decision of the Continental Congress. This was 1 month before July 4th, 1776. So because of all this and other rich history of our contribution to the American Revolution, Northborough Revolution 250 Committee was formed about a year and a half ago at the end of 2023. It was formed from several town commissions and committees as well as nonprofits. For the town commissions, we have the Historical Commission. A representation, we have Cultural Council, Community Affairs, and Cable Access TV. For nonprofits, we have the Northborough Historical Society, the American Legion Post, and the Garden Club. Obviously, our main objective is to commemorate the 250th anniversary of town events leading to the Revolution, but it also is to promote historic education of the town and also to promote civic pride, the pride that we should all have in our contribution to the Revolution. We've had a busy year this year. The funding for thus far has been primarily through ARPA funds. We also have some funds from the Historical Commission and the Historical Society, as well as thousands of hours of volunteer work. We've produced to date 5 videos and we probably are in production for another 10 or 12 more. We are currently having the Witness House photo display, which is currently ongoing at the library. This Witness House is basically a house that existed, that is existing today, that was around during the Revolution or before. And this Saturday, we have our Minutemen departure event at Town Common. I'm hoping you all can attend. We will have a reenactment of the departure of the Minutemen on April 19th to Concord. And this will feature singing and reenactments and speeches by our own Reverend Whitney and our own Captain Wood, who is the leader of the Minutemen. We are also doing outreach to K-8 schools, Algonquin, and Asmid Valley High Schools. So the funding request for fiscal year 2026 is to commemorate some of the major activities that happened in 1776. I might add that most other states are doing most of their celebrations around the 250th anniversary of the July 4th. So we are planning, of course, an Apple Fest parade with a Revolutionary War monument dedication. In December of 2026 will be the anniversary of the Knox train passing through Northborough. We will be coordinating with Worcester and some of the other Knox Trail towns in the area. And then the big event that we're scheduled is the event commemorating the June 3rd, 1776 Declaration of Independence by the town of Northborough. And then beyond that, the actual Declaration of Independence was printed in September of 1776, and we will have events for that. So this would be the appropriation, which this is a one-time appropriation. We're not going to be asking for any more funding. This will take us through the end of all of the anticipated events that we're planning. And if I can end it, I would like to say that about 250 years ago, next year, the town of Northborough met in a town meeting, probably not unlike this meeting. And what they said was, if it be the mind of this town to be independent of Great Britain, in case the Continental Congress think proper, and we are ready with our lives and fortunes, if Providence called to defend the same. And this passed in the affirmative. Thank you. Any questions?
May I hear from appropriations on Article 41, please?
Yes, the Appropriations Committee voted unanimously to recommend approval of Article 40.
Thank you. Microphone A.
Norm Corbin, 35 Whitney Street. I am the chair of the Northborough Revolution Committee. I work very close with Bob. This funding is really going to help us through the next year so we can start to have some events. It keeps reminding me of the 250th of the town that we did almost 8 years ago. And by having a pot of money, we were able to do some special events. We were able to subsidize some of the activities. And just really hope that we have this funding for us for the next year. Thank you.
Hearing no other questions, I believe we're ready to vote on Article 41. Again, this is a majority vote, and the voting is open. Looks like the voting is complete. And Article 41 passes by the majority vote.
Thank you.
Article 42.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer the care, custody, control, and management of the property located at 167 Main Street and 0 Main Street, commonly known as White Cliffs, as described in the quitclaim deed recorded with the Worcester South District Registry of Deeds, and Book 57796, page 339, Assessor's Parcel Map 53, Lot 73, and Map 53, Lot 155, from the officer or board currently having care, custody, control, and management thereof, to the Select Board for general municipal purposes and for the purposes of conveyance. Furthermore, I move to authorize the Select Board to convey said property by deed and fee, lease, or other means, subject to a perpetual historical preservation restriction in accordance with Chapter 184, Section 31 to 33, and on such terms and conditions as the Select Board deems in the best interests of the town. Additionally, I move to authorize the Select Board to execute any and all instruments and take any and all related actions necessary or appropriate to accomplish the purposes of this article.
I heard a second. Was that a second? Yeah. Motion has been made and seconded.
So, once again, going back to the purchase of White Cliffs at the 2016 town meeting, the law of the Community Preservation Act requires that a permanent restriction be placed on any real property that we buy with CPA funds, as I mentioned before, be it land or building. So the fact that we used CPA funds to buy it ensures that we already have a preservation restriction that will go with this property. This article is written to ensure that that preservation restriction would carry if the property were sold or leased. The article further gives the Select Board the authority to sell or lease and take any other actions thereto.
Thank you. May I hear from the Select Board on Article 42?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of this article.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I wanted to emphasize that this historic deed restriction article also authorizes the Select Board to sell or lease the property subject to a perpetual historical preservation restriction. In March, the town issued a public request for proposal for the sale or lease of White Cliffs. The intent of the RFP was to attract proposals that align with key community priorities, including reducing the financial burden of White Cliffs on the town, preserving and restoring the mansion, enhancing the site's landscaping, and allowing public access to the property for municipal meetings and/or special events. Additionally, the RFP encouraged proposals that would introduce a use contributing to downtown Northborough's revitalization and economic diversification. Respondents were also required to demonstrate strong financial capacity, as long-term financial sustainability was critical factor in the evaluation process. It's important to clarify that this warrant article is not about raising taxes. In fact, it does the opposite. By pursuing a responsible reuse of White Cliffs through a lease or sale, the town will eliminate approximately $45,000 per year in ingoing maintenance costs. These are funds we've been spending just to patch and Band-Aid issues without addressing the building's long-term needs. Under this proposal, we shift from stopgap measures to a sustainable solution, one that restores and reinvests in this historic landmark and will hopefully bring revenue in the way of meals tax, real and/or personal property tax. In 2016, voters overwhelmingly supported preserving White Cliffs. But in the years since, it's become clear that the town cannot take on this major restoration project alone. That's why we've taken the next logical step, soliciting proposals from qualified partners who have the resources to both restore building and contribute to the town's broader goals. We talked a lot about the town having to pay prevailing wages, which in some cases double the cost of labor. Now we would be relieved of this with an outside non-municipal party doing the work. The town received 2 viable bids and are currently following all legal and fair procedures and reviewing them. Tonight, I will have our DPW director provide a brief overview of the bids we received, but due to the procurement process, we're legally limited in what we can share. We do not want to jeopardize the integrity of the bidding process and put the town at a disadvantage in negotiations. The main evaluation criteria consisted of a detailed project summary, feasibility, and financial projections, including sources and use of funds, and a general description of what community benefits would be. As part of our RFP process for the future of White Cliffs, the town is seeking a project that brings meaningful value to the community. We're focused on proposals that support goals like job creation, increased business for local vendors, increased business at local restaurants, and minimal impact on infrastructure and traffic. This article gives us the opportunity to take an important next step. Much like the TIF incentive we provided to St. Gobain last night, these potential partners are looking for the town to show support, whether through Community Preservation Act funding or by helping finalize plans to remove the aging addition that's been causing moisture damage for years, well before the RFP was issued. These respondents are prepared to invest millions into revitalizing this property. With that level of commitment, I believe it's in our best interest to support them however we can, through CPC reserves or even short-term relief in meal or personal property taxes, so that together we can make this project a success for the entire community. Delaying this vote could slow the progress we've built so far. There's a risk that interested bidders may move on, which would mean reissuing the RFP and potentially seeing the building remain vacant and underutilized for another year. That would be a missed opportunity, not just in terms of revenue, but in moving this important project forward for the benefit of this historic landmark and the community. We don't want the building sitting vacant and underutilized for another year, costing the town money. Even if the article passes, no transaction becomes finalized without careful review. If we don't receive a bid that meets our standards, we won't move forward. We believe this article reflects what the community asked for us to do in 2016 to protect and preserve this building and use it to benefit the town, not drain resources from it. This puts another tool in our toolbox to revitalize the local economy, protect our history, and move forward, generating opportunity, not debt. I'd like to invite Scott Charpentier, our DPW director, up to discuss a little bit more about the bids we received. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you, Steph. Scott Charpentier, Public Works Director. As our town administrator indicated, we issued an RFP, a request for proposals, for the disposition of this property. There's a 2-envelope process in accordance with Mass General Law for procurement. One envelope is the technical proposals. What are they going to do with the property? How do they want to do it? And the other one is the financial piece. Is their proposal financially viable? You don't open the second one until you've gone through the evaluation for the first one. So we received 2 proposals, one from Nikki's Gardens of Hope and a second one from Elegant Banquets LLC. The proposals have yet to be reviewed. The decision was to wait till after the election in order for the new elected officials to be in place so that a reviewing committee can be put together, make the recommendations, and determine what is the preferred proposal, at which point the second envelopes could be opened and reviewed. I'll give you a real quick bio on what each of them included. Again, they haven't been reviewed for their advantageousness for the community, but generally here's what the uses are proposed. Nikki's Gardens of Hope, they're proposing to restore the existing building, convert it over to a pub and event center on the first floor, and on the second floor to have offices. They're proposing on the first floor also to have a cafe and a gift shop featuring local artists and wares from local vendors. They're proposing to build a new structure adjacent to the mansion. That'll be for an adult residence, a supportive adult residence for those with disabilities and autism and the like.
Please, no more outbursts.
They'll be adding
Okay.
public trails and gardens to the property for the community to enjoy and utilize. And they're also proposing a shuttle van service for the adult residents of the property, as well as for the overall community, including the schools, local downtown areas. Elegant Banquets LLC is proposing to demolish the additions, restore the historic mansion as Nikki's Gardens will. They're going to build a new ballroom to hold functions and events, seating capacity of somewhere between 250 and 300 people. This would not be their first endeavor in this effort. The first floor would have be restored of the historic mansion. There'll be a room dedicated to reflecting the history of the property. The second floor and the upstairs will be offices similar to Nikki's Gardens, but it'll also include a bridal suite. They'll have, they're offering their free community use in the historic mansion during the off days. That includes typically a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This is mostly like wedding receptions and the like. Thursdays, rehearsal dinners, Fridays, and so forth. The grounds would be restored as well with gardens and vistas constructed. Both proposals were reviewed and met the requirements of the submissions. So that when you have a proposal come in, there's three things you look at. One, is it responsive? Does it meet the minimum requirements? Yes. Two, you look through the technical proposals and determine how advantageous they are to the community. And then once you pick the most advantageous, three, you open up the envelope that talks all about the money. So we are past the first step. We opened them up, we looked at them, we said both of these meet the minimum requirements, and we hit the pause button again until after the elections so that we can have all of our new elected officials in their seats. And at that point, we can put together a review committee and go through the comparative evaluation, after which the money envelopes get open. That's all, Mr. Muller.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott, hang on, stay there. Please.
Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Scott, are we doing Article 42 or 43? I'm kind of confused. What you were describing there right now, is that more appropriate for 43, or what are we doing? Are we combining the two?
We ended up, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry if I missed something along the way here.
No. So we had almost duplicative warrant articles. One was for the sale or lease of White Cliffs, and one was the historic preservation deed restriction. When our attorney looked through the warrant articles for review, she said these are two of the same, but I would keep the historic deed restriction because it gives the select board the authority to convey, but also the most important part was keeping that historic deed.
All right, Hans, but, okay, so we're just, on Article 42, we just want to do the deed restriction.
Nope, that's why I got up and I said I want to emphasize.
All right, so we've meshed the two.
It was already meshed,
All right,
but
okay.
yes, yep.
Got it. So
Yep.
now, where are we with the TIF?
We're not doing a TIF.
Good.
I'm glad you're happy.
Is that the same with the town hall?
With the town hall?
TIF.
Oh, 4 West Main, yes. No 4 West Main.
So both of those are out?
Correct.
So I can go to Ullman's?
Yes.
Thank God. All right.
Microphone B, please.
Hi, Cheryl Silverberg, Center Drive. So, curiosity, if they're willing to remove those parts, why did we just vote on removing those parts?
No, they did not. They did not. And that's what I just stated. I said they're going to need help. These, for us to do the restoration, would cost with prevailing wages, as we've been going over and
But what
over.
Scott just said was that they would, using it, didn't you just say that they would be removing what we just voted on removing?
The Elegant Banquets LLC indicated in their technical proposal that the mansion would be restored and the additions would be removed. We don't know what the financial components are in the second envelope. They may have certain requirements that the town has to participate in order for their pro forma to be viable. The last RFP that was put out for White Cliffs, one of the respondents was requesting a substantial investment under CPA to support that. We don't know what they're looking for the town until we open up the second envelope.
So if you open up the second envelope and they're willing to remove them on their own, does that mean the money goes back to the town that we just voted on spending?
I would certainly recommend to the CPC that those funds not be utilized for the design services if the selected respondent indicates that they are going to do the design and demolition.
Okay, second question is, do we have a minimum that the town is agreeing on to sell these buildings, or sell this building, or lease it?
No.
But we're giving permission to the board to just decide, we can sell it for 100,000, we can sell it for 5, we can sell it for 1.7. There's no minimum for the town to say, all right, at least we know we're recouping something?
Correct. There is no minimum.
And my last question is, would it come back, even though we're giving permission to the board, would it come back to the town to vote on whether or not we want to accept or reject the proposal? Because I certainly don't want to sell White Cliffs after the money we've invested for, say, $50,000. I want to be able to say, no, the sale should not go through. Is that going to come back to us to be able to answer that?
There's, we don't know if it's a sale or a lease. So the RFP that went out on the street included either sale or lease proposals. In reviewing the minimum criteria, it wasn't identified. One of them had identification that they were seeking a lease. And one was a partnership, but we don't have the financial components of that opened up. So you go through the RFP, you do the comparative evaluation criteria, you bring them in for interviews. Very similar, the same process that we did in the original RFP, where we had 2 respondents. One was affordable housing, and the second one was a different type of containers coming in and making mini spaces. And we brought them both in for interviews. That's when questions are answered. I would assume in their financial envelopes, they indicate purchase price, proposed lease value, and those types of things. And any additional questions would be asked in open meeting during the interview process, just like it was in the first time around.
All right, but so when it comes down to the actual lease or sale, how much say do we, the people, have compared to the 5 or 6 people on the board?
It would be done in open meeting, and I would expect anybody who's here and interested in the disposition of the property to also participate in that open meeting to let the elected officials know what your
Yeah, but
thoughts
what
are.
I'm saying is, say there's 15 of us that come to the meeting and we say, no, we don't think that's enough money. That doesn't mean that they have to turn around and say, okay, we're not going to do it. They can easily turn around and say, well, it's in our control, so we're going to do it anyhow. So how does any control come back to the people if we vote to allow them to go forward and be the people that talk about what can and can't be done? That takes it out of our hands completely, correct?
Mr. Moderator, that might be best answered by the Select Board. That might be best answered by the Select Board.
If I could ask the chair to please respond.
Sure. Understanding that I will no longer be on the Select
I
Board
do.
in another couple of weeks, I can tell you from experience from the first RFP round, the Select Board had a couple of meetings where we listened to the proponents. We listened for probably 2.5 hours to residents, and ultimately made the decision with that proposal to not move forward with it. I won't be on the board when this gets reviewed. I trust my fellow board members to pay close attention to what all town residents, including neighbors, think about the proposals and think about the impact. One thing I will try to convey is there should not be an expectation that we will receive our money back. The town spent $1.6 million to save the building. The building needs to be saved because town meeting said it needed to be saved. I would recommend not having any number in mind. In all likelihood, the town will not receive any significant amount of money by anybody either buying it or leasing it from us. It costs too much. It's going to cost too much money to revitalize the building and bring it up to code, let alone historic needs for anybody to do anything otherwise. So that's to set an expectation. The deed restriction is critical. It is up to this body whether town meeting wants to ask the select board to, complete the negotiation for a sale or lease. I will also say that there's a pretty good chance that Any project will have to come back to town meeting anyway. It might need zoning changes. There might be some financial consideration that they want. For example, the prior project, as Scott mentioned, wanted some significant amount of money from CPC. If that was part of the equation, which we don't know yet, that would have to come back to town meeting. There are a couple of other aspects that might have to come back to town meeting anyway. So even if this is approved, I can't say with certainty, but my guess is the project would come back to town meeting for one thing or another before the sale would close.
Okay. I understand we probably won't get the 1.6 million, but it's also a huge piece of property with a huge building, and eventually whoever buys it is going to make that money back. So I think that should kind of be a consideration for everybody to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone A, please.
Excuse me, Norm Corbin, 35 Whitney Street. I do wish this article was in two parts. One dealing with the deed restriction, which makes good sense, and a second part about the responsibility of how this gets done. I would like the way the process works for White Cliffs to be what they did for the fire station. I think any decision for White Cliffs needs to be a town meeting vote. I do not like the idea of a select board, which is going to have 2 new members, making a decision on a project this size. I think it was voted on at town meeting to purchase it. I feel strongly that when the town meeting has to vote to accept whatever the options are. Excuse me. And that's kind of where I'm coming from on this. Thanks.
Thank you. Microphone B, please.
Jeff Knight, 6 Lancaster, and also a member of the Appropriations Committee. So this was in 2 parts. This was in Articles 42 and 43, but they took the operative language of 43 and put it in Article 42 to put it into a non-financial article so that our committee would not opine on it. But that language that's now in 42, a non-financial article, we voted against by a majority vote of 4-2 in committee. So I thought I'd bring it up and share that because I think it's relevant. The exact language from Article 43 is now sitting in Article 42. And so I'm an attorney. I can't see any attorney really saying that. So I see this more like yesterday with the wool over your eyes over the firemen's money going to the park. I think it's more of a political trick to move the operative language of 43 into 42 to make it one thing. It makes 0 sense to do that. So don't fret over a deed of restriction. You could do that anytime up until the sale of the property. It's not an emergency to do that. A special town meeting costs about 10 grand, and anyone that's putting in, who's responding to an RFP on a project this size is going to understand the need for a special town meeting to approve a sale this big. So there's not a rush, there's not an emergency. Never give any select board carte blanche on a deal this size. That's why the Appropriations Committee, 4-2, voted to not recommend the passage of Article 43. You're welcome to go back on YouTube and watch our meeting, watch the questions we asked, listen to the deliberations. I think this was a deliberate stunt to essentially take that recommendation out of town meeting so you don't hear it. So I highly recommend you never give carte blanche to the select board on something this important. Make them spend it's $10,000. Come back to town meeting, have a special town meeting, let them negotiate, get the deal, bring it here so you can hear it, get the facts, get the details, vote on it, and approve it and have it be done. Everyone in that room that night wants us to sell or lease White Cliffs, but you should never give up your voice to the select board because you saw last night what can happen, right? Thank you.
Thank you. The chair of the select board would like to respond to the statements.
Just as a little bit of background, Article 42, the historic deed restriction is the title. We recognized was not on here. We saw 43 was the sale. We knew we needed to do the historic deed restriction. That's why we inserted that in there just really it was the same day we executed the warrant, about 3 weeks ago. It was not obvious to us that Article 42 also included the sale language. Speaking personally, the intent was to have them be 2 separate articles. It was discovered very, very recently that there was sale language in 42. So I wanted to provide that background.
And if
It
you
was
look,
definitely not a
if you look
political
back, it says to, in both articles, give the right, the authority of the select board to convey in both articles. So that's, and I have the attorney's notes.
What attorney?
Just to prove it.
Good.
And just adding one detail, the select board did not offer any recommendation on Article 43 when we were reviewing them, which was the standalone sale article, which we'll be passing over after this one.
Oh, okay, not the historic restriction. you're
The
talking
historic deed restriction,
Okay.
we believe is necessary.
Yep.
Microphone B, please.
Lisa Maselli, 13 Maple Street. I was on the board when we talked about this and was not allowed to talk about it because I was deemed a sort of close abutter. I'm no longer
Say that
on the
again,
board,
Ms.
and I
Maselli, I
can
hear you.
speak about it. And there's a lot of things that I'm concerned about. I have to echo what Norm Corbin said. I don't believe that the 5 people on the board should make the decision for this. I think it should be a town decision, and I've said that before. A couple of the things that happened during the meeting, and we just had a little list from the administrator saying that there was future considerations. The first one was to establish a focus group and to form the group to be able to get information and move forward with it. That didn't happen. Number 3, the disposition of the White Cliffs, and this is the legal part, was a topic of discussion during November 2nd of the Preservation Act with Stuart Saganor, who's the executive director of the Community Preservation Coalition. For the sale of the property to proceed, strict legal and procedural requirements as outlined in Mass General Law 184, Section 32, must be followed, and these include a sale at fair market value. The property must be sold at the price that is reflected in fair market value, ensuring compliance with CPA guidelines. Approval by the Massachusetts Historic Commission. Any potential sale must receive approval from Massachusetts Historical Commission to ensure the historical preservation standards are upheld. And proceeds to CPA funds. All proceeds from the sale must be deposited back into the CPA fund, which supports the project and preserves historic resources, creative affordable housing and development recreation. Now, we are looking at a lease for a very small amount of money and for a very long period of time, or we're looking to sell outright, which means that you would have to pay back the amount of money that was given from CPA.
Absolutely.
So that money would then come, again, from where? Would it come from the person who's leasing it? Would it come from the person who's buying it, or does it come from the taxpayer?
That would be negotiated upon where.
Behind closed doors?
That would be negotiated at the time. Whether or not it's a lease or a sale, we would look into it at that point in time.
All right. So, again, it's not something I'm comfortable with. I don't think that we should be putting everything from this article onto that, whatever it is we decide later. I think we're a little early on this, and I'd like to see this held until such time as all of these discussions can be had. We never had a display for the population to see what options there might be and what you could do with it, which we had actually paid for. The DVBW architects were supposed to do that in 2019. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then we go into the fact that we're not sure what's going to happen up there. We're not sure, we don't even know what the language of the deed restriction is. I don't think you should come before us without the language, because we should know in advance, far before anybody who would take any possession of the property. So that has to be done. And with the things that are happening, and the fact is that I know we might have an opportunity, but what is the opportunity? And I don't feel that we should be putting ourselves into those positions of a 40-year lease. I think that's way too long. We did that with 4 West Main Street, and it did not turn out well. So it is my recommendation to either vote no on this or pass over this article.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
I was next, Mr. George. So let's go in order.
Microphone A.
Thank you. What is the officer board currently having care, custody, control, and management thereof of the select board for general municipal purposes and purpose of conveyance? Please tell me the name of that. And your computer systems, if they're so good, should be able to tell you
I did not understand a word that you said.
Yeah.
We have
Okay,
terrible
let me
acoustics.
read it slowly like you, Mr. George, because you are a good speaker, by the way, and I do mean that. From the officer board currently having care, custody, control, and management thereof, to the select board for general municipal purposes and for the purposes of conveyance. Now, who is the officer board currently having care, custody, and control and management? Can somebody answer that question?
The select board already has custody control of White Cliffs.
So the select board is transferring it to who?
It's language that was provided by council as
Your
to how you...
AI council? Yeah, exactly, Mitch.
No,
Okay.
we have real human beings.
That's
as council.
enough, okay? Over here.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to make a motion to move the question.
Motion has been made and seconded. I will ask for the individuals that have been standing in line, is there a significant piece of information that you want to contribute to this?
I was going to ask to move it to be passed over.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Ma'am?
Hi, I don't know if you can hear me. This is so tall. Jennifer Tolman, 203 West Main Street. I have a copy of the deed from the registry and the motion Article 42 from the annual town meeting of April 25th, 2016. I just want to make sure that, like, legally this versus that, that's all I wanted to say.
I would say that that's something that we could do on, as a sidebar at the time, because that, we can't do anything about that, the changes.
I know, but I think the language of this original, the OG, is different than the language of that. So I don't know if that would become a problem. The deed
Thank you.
with the language is different than what that says.
Understood,
I
but
just want to vote on this. I don't know if we're voting in conflict of what was approved in 2016.
first what we need to do is, there was a motion to move the question.
Right, yeah.
I need to address
This is like
that.
a legal transference of property. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. It is. Any lawyers in the house want to look at it, or I guess we're done
Right-
talking? Is that
Right
what
now, we have on the floor a motion to move the question, and it was seconded. And I think we all know what moving the question is all about, the process. It is a 2/3 majority vote, and it's very straightforward. If you say yes, that means that you want to move the question and move on to voting on Article 42. The voting is now open. And it looks like we have slowed down to a non-existent crawl. And it looks like the motion to move the question has passed by the required 2/3 vote. We are now back on Article 42. And we have the graphic on 42? Okay. Perfect, thank you. And this is a 2/3 majority vote also. So the voting is now open for Article 42. Looks like the voting is complete. Let's see the results, please. Article 42 does not pass. It fails to meet the required 2/3 vote.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we pass over Articles 43, 44, 45, and 46.
A total of 4 articles that you wish to pass over?
That's accurate.
Okay, thank you. May I have a second from someone?
Second.
Thank you.
Briefly, for different reasons, Article 43, as described earlier, was encompassed within 42, which we knew the body would, one way or another, would act upon, so we plan to pass over that. Article 44, the TIF, because the negotiations and that financial process hasn't begun yet, there's really nothing to discuss on that yet, so that is appropriate to pass over. And similar with 4 West Main, AKA the Old Town Hall, when we created the warrant and put these on there, we would hope that the RFP would have been ready at that point, and we might have something to say, so we put that as a placeholder. That process has not yet begun, so removing those articles is appropriate at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any question on the motion to pass over? Hearing none, and we can group the 4 of these together in one vote, okay? So once again, just as a reminder, we are talking about Articles 43, 44, 45, and 46. Passover vote is a simple majority vote, and the voting is open. And it looks like the voting is complete. May we see the results, please? The motion to pass over those articles has passed by the necessary majority vote. To remind you, we did 47 last night, so that brings us to Article 48.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend Chapter 2-36 of the Northborough Town Code, Historic Buildings, specifically Paragraph 2-36-20, Definitions, by revising the definition of significant building as set forth in Article 48 in the warrant.
The motion has been made and seconded.
Thank you. Bob Light, Chair, Historical Commission. This is a very straightforward article, but there is a necessary change that needs to be made in order to prevent unnecessary delays in project development. The purpose of this code is to protect historically or architecturally significant buildings, and when a building has a demolition request to the building department, the Historical Commission is charged with determining whether it's a historic building, or significant building, and if so, can impose a 180-day demolition delay to find alternatives to demolition. What we don't want to do is have a restriction put in place that delays beneficial development for buildings that are not significant. So we look at the definition in 2-36-20, and there's one problem with it. It says that any building in the town which is 100 years or more, which is fine, and number 1, researched and found to be by the commission to be historically significant or architecturally significant, that's good. The problem is in paragraph 2, where it says, or is listed on the National Register of Historic Places or included in the Massachusetts Historical Commission Inventory of Historic or Architectural Assets. This is also known as MACRIS, which is the Massachusetts Cultural Resource Information System. But according to Massachusetts historical guidelines, a building that is on Macris is not necessarily significant. There are many reasons why a building may have at one point been put on Macris, but is no longer historically or architecturally significant. So what we are proposing is to replace the language as follows. We would keep the 100-year or more restriction, and then add, which has been determined by the commission to be significant based on any of the following criteria. We deleted one by moving it up to the paragraph A, and we deleted paragraph 2, which is a problem for many reasons, because that does tie the hands of the commission, because if a building is on Macris, it's automatically significant, when in fact it may not be.
That's subjective and arbitrary.
And we replaced 1 and 2 with 1 and 2, which is direct language from recommendations by the Massachusetts Historical Commission in their sample bylaw guidelines. And that basically also strengthens this by giving the commission more information about how to make the determination of whether something is significant. So at the end, only truly significant buildings will be subject to a demolition delay. Thank you. I'd entertain any questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, first of all,
You have not been recognized yet. I'm sorry, okay?
Thank you.
One moment,
This
please.
proceduralism causes obsessive compulsive disorder. by the
One
way.
moment, please, okay?
Go ahead.
We did not get the opinion of the Historic District Commission.
Yes, and the Historical Commission unanimously approves this change.
Thank you. Now, microphone A.
Okay, I get the time. Okay. Yeah, so determined by the commission is the historical. Why can't we just say that all old buildings are significant? They're much better built, okay, than all these new buildings. With these new buildings, okay, these contractors build them as big and cheap as possible, and they build them deliberately, okay, so they make more money off it, because it's all about money. The old buildings are much nicer, they're way better built. Everything before 1950 is historically significant. But if you turn from to a labor-based economy and not a financial management-based economy on the basis of projected future values and arbitrary private discussions, we don't know any of the boards or commission, we don't know any of this stuff. This is all arbitrary and vague. And we're gonna figure out who is behind this, because this is all, there's no transparency whatsoever, and there's a reason for it. There is a reason for it. But maybe if you go to the Lord God and you admit, Michael, I was wrong. Maybe you're right. Maybe Michael's right.
Thank you.
Maybe the Lord is merciful.
Yes, please.
Tough act to follow. I was on the Historical Commission for something like 16 to 17 years, and the way the wording it was always a challenge for us to determine what was a significant building, and this clarifies it, and it will make the Historic Commission today a lot easier to go through this exercise. So I highly recommend voting for this.
Thank you. Hearing no other discussion or questions, we're voting on Article 48. It is a simple majority vote, and the voting is open. Looks like the voting has slowed, so can we see the results, please? And Article 48 passes by the required majority vote.
Thank you.
Article 49, please.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend Chapter 2-12 of Town Code entitled Alcoholic Beverages by revising Sections 2-12-010, Consumption and Possession Restricted, 2-12-020, Possession within Memorial Field, and 2-12-030, Consumption in Town Structures and Public Places, as printed in Article 49 in the warrant.
Motion has been made and personally seconded. Thank you. Please.
Thank you. When reviewing, obviously, that the town owns a couple of relatively new buildings, if you want to call White Cliffs relatively newly owned by the town or not, but certainly for West Main, we recognized that we had some old and outdated bylaws left over from the Blue Law era, prohibiting alcohol within town properties and on town land. And the town land part, as I said, only mentions Memorial Field because it dates that old, but that was the only park in town. We really need to modernize those and bring those up to speed. There are many options for one-day liquor licenses or permanent liquor licenses that are available. For example, if someone came to us and said, hey, we want to lease the old restaurant space on the first floor of Old Town Hall, and we want to get in there, in a couple of weeks, and a lot of the restaurant, and honestly, is still there, we would have to say, that's fine, but you're not going to be able to serve alcohol because our town bylaws prohibit that. This opens up that flexibility. It opens up the flexibility, for example, if the Community Affairs Committee wants to serve alcohol at one of the concerts, they would have to do it within an enclosed area, as is required by law for one-day liquor licenses. We do those for Tugas, we do those for Wegmans and other places. There's a normal process for doing this. This certainly does not allow employees to drink on the job or anything like that. All of that is covered by, by really good policies that are already in place. So this makes all of those facilities a lot more usable. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. May I have the opinion or recommendation from the Select Board, please?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Microphone A, please.
Christopher Brandon, 22 Sherlin Drive. I'm actually making this motion for my son, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. He would have done this, but I'm actually making a motion to amend Article 49. I move to amend Article 49 to add the following condition to the amendment of Section 2-12-20. No alcohol or liquor license or permit shall be issued for any event, gathering, or function at Assabet Park. A couple of reasons for this. The proposed amendment is primarily symbolic, as it is highly unlikely the Select Board would issue an alcohol permit for the largely family-oriented Assabet Park where the splash pad and playground are. This amendment would explicitly prohibit this unlikely action. This amendment is also motivated by a recognition of the significance of Assabet Hill to Northborough's 19th century temperance movement. According to Josiah Kent's Northborough history, prior to 1836, Assabet Hill was known as Liquor Hill. Around that time, town residents began to feel that the hill's name would be incompatible with their value of temperance. On July 4th, 1836, it was declared that Liquor Hill would be renamed to Assabet Hill with the following song. I will spare you all me singing the song, but if you don't mind, I will read it. Welcome the day, the happy day that we from care are free. Away with study, welcome play will independent be. Then welcome playmates one and all, oh hasten to this pleasant hill. Our feast partake of fruits and cake, enjoy it all who will. Mount Assabet with smiles we greet, now Liquor Hill no more. That odious name no more we claim, though long that name it bore. For southern slave we pity crave, but oh consistent be, the heaviest changes forged by sin, we would be truly free. Vile rum we hate, abominate, we will forever flee. When on this hill we liquor spill, pure water it shall be. Then welcome playmates one and all, oh hasten to this pleasant hill. Our feast partake of fruits and cake, enjoy it all who will. I ask that we retain the prohibition of alcohol in Assabet Park and our bylaws to honor our town's temperance activists. Though today most of us probably have a different worldwide view, these activists sincerely wanted to make our community better, and their memory should not be forgotten. Thank you.
So there is an amendment to Article 49, and do you have that in writing?
I do.
Okay, if you can come down front, please. Okay, we have an amendment to...
Could I speak to the amendment, or?
I just want to make sure people understand what the amendment is, and then you can speak to it. okay, to Article 49. And the amendment is in addition to Article 49, adding one more bullet. And that one more bullet would be, no alcohol or liquor license or permit shall be issued for any event, gathering, or function at Assabet Park. Okay, so that's the addition for that. Now you may respond.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. While I appreciate the spirit, if you will, of the amendment and the historic aspect of Liquor Hill, I'm certainly comfortable in speaking on behalf of the Select Board in that we would never approve a liquor license for the splash pad or anything so close to where kids would be. I mean, it's not only are there legal implications of that you know, we would have an issue with. That's kind of silly. I worry about setting this in stone in our bylaws, similar to the way that we had the Memorial Park mentioned in the older bylaws, and you look at that and say, you know, a lot of people don't even know where that one is, and why does it not mention, you know, Ellsworth McAfee or anything else? I'd rather leave this in the hands of my trusted friends on the Select Board and future generations of Select Board members to determine whether it is or isn't appropriate. I could see, for example, there may be a, you know, a recreation-related event there that does not involve children, where they may want to serve alcohol to close out the season or something like that to adult volunteers, and I wouldn't want to restrict that artificially in advance.
Okay, we're prepared to vote on the amendment for Article 49, and this is a straightforward vote, a majority vote. And as I said before, the addition to what the original Article 49 had was to add no alcohol or liquor license or permit shall be issued for any event, gathering, or function at Assabet Park. And the voting is open. And it looks like the voting is complete. May we see the results, please? And the motion to amend does not pass. That brings us back to Article 49, I'm sorry. Sorry, ma'am, I didn't see you there. B, please.
Lisa Martin, 32 Weston Terrace. I just wanted to speak out in support of this article. I've been on both sides of this, both as a brewery owner for another town, doing on town property, and as a citizen participating. These are not wild parties. These are calm enjoyment activities, but they're also all go through the process of talking to the select board and making sure that it is something that is a benefit to the town, and these are a benefit to the town to allow adults to enjoy an adult beverage in a controlled setting for the enjoyment of the town that increases our enjoyment of activities such as things that happen in the town, concerts or things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. Whoa, you just made it under the wire.
I sat farther away from the mic tonight, so I apologize. I'm Susie Sislicka, 8 Emerson Road. I'm on the Community Affairs Committee, and we've been talking about this for like 10 years. So it would be fun to have a little beer tent, or I always kind of pictured it like a petting zoo for adults with you know, alcohol inside. It would be a calm. I've been to them in other towns. We just thought it would be fun. We're always trying to do new things. And if you've been to our concerts, we try to have new vendors and everything. So I let our committee know that this was coming up for it. So not on behalf of my committee, but as a member of the committee and someone who went to the concerts before, I'm in support, but just to put my spot in. And I know, it would be fun at Applefest too, and the fireworks and everything else. So thank you.
Thank you. You don't have to run, you can walk gracefully.
Hi, Ruth Ann Ruzzi, 160 West Street. Just a question, historically, has anything like this come up before? I'm a little curious as to why it's come up in this particular year. Maybe it's just housekeeping and we're getting to it as a town. But has it come up before? And if so, what was the voting like and the thought behind, obviously, voting it down since we're having to bring it up again?
Sure, I can answer that a couple of different ways. I am not aware of it previously coming to town meeting for this purpose, certainly not in the years that I've been involved. I can give you one example of a situation that the town could have done something that it could not. In 2000, I think it was 18 or 19, the library celebrated a significant anniversary, and we hosted a big party. We ended up having to rent space elsewhere for that party. We had some conversations about hosting it within the library itself, but given the anniversary aspect, we wanted to make sure we served champagne. We thought that was appropriate, which by these bylaws we would not be able to do, and there would be no option to get a one-day liquor license. So that was one practical aspect. The reason that it came up in our minds this year is because we own 4 West Main and we own White Cliffs. And these bylaws prohibit the sale of alcohol in those buildings no matter who is running the buildings. So if someone rented the first floor of 4 West Main for a restaurant, or if someone did a long-term lease on White Cliffs to have a function hall, alcohol would not be allowed. And we want to market those buildings, and these limitations put severe restrictions on that.
Okay, so this doesn't have a negative history, it just simply hasn't come up.
I am not aware of any history at all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more at the mics for questions or comments, I believe we're ready to vote for Article 49. And the graphic is there. It is a simple majority, and the vote is open. I think we have the vote in, and the results. Article 49 passes by the required majority vote. Article 50, please.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend the town charter, section 3-4, selectmen appointments, and the following sections of the town code to reflect changes in the appointment authority for key financial positions. Chapter 1-16, Administrative Services, Section 1-16-100. Chapter 1-36, Finance and Records Division, Sections 1-36030 and 1-36070. Chapter 1-52, Finances, Financial Planning Committee, Section 1-52-050. These amendments shall designate the finance director, rather than the town accountant, as the position appointed by the select board, and transfer the authority to appoint the town accountant to the town administrator, ensuring consistency with the town's financial administrative structure.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Yes.
I think
Steph is speaking. Steph's doing it, okay.
Yep, this is an easy article. This is just housekeeping. There was a time when the accountant was the top financial position. Now it's the finance director, so we're just swapping those.
May I hear from the Select Board on Article 50, please?
Select Board unanimously recommends approval of this article.
Any questions or discussion on Article 50? Hearing none, we are prepared to vote. The vote is up. It is a 2/3 majority Okay, just to remind you of that. Voting is open. Okay, I think we have the vote in. If we could see the results, please. And Article 50 passes by the required two-thirds vote. Article 52, please.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we pass over Articles 52, 53, 54, and 55.
Was that okay, thank you. Oh, thank you.
These four related articles were to provide easements to the town to construct a small section of sidewalk on Hudson Street. If you walk in front of Trinity Church and then walk up towards Pierce Street, there's a small section of no sidewalk at all. The board was very, very interested in connecting that so there would be a safe place to walk. There are 4 property owners that we would need to get permission from to do that. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful yet in getting that permission from 2 of the property owners. It did not make sense to get easements on 2 of them and not on the other 2. So hopefully in years future that will come forward again and we'll be able to get permission to build that sidewalk. But unfortunately, now is not the year.
Thank you. Yes, microphone B, please.
Mr. Moderator, Ken Picard, 78 Whitney. Can we do this by consent calendar?
Certainly. What we're going to do is put them all together anyway, so same thing. Any questions, any discussion on these articles that we're about to pass over? Hearing none, I will ask that we have these all in one vote, and the graphic is up, and we can vote now. And it looks like the voting is over. And the motion to pass over these articles passes by the required majority vote. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Paretsky, and I'm the chair of the Northborough Planning Board. I actually didn't think I'd make it up here tonight, but here I am. We're always the last of all the town meeting articles. I've been the interim chair since Carrie Martinick's resignation in January. I just wanted to thank Carrie for her knowledge, time, and dedication to the planning board, and for volunteering for the many other communities throughout the town. The planning board will discuss Articles 56 through 62 tonight. Right now, I'm going to start with Article 56. I'm going to talk about 56 through 58 together because all of them are in relation to the accessory dwelling bylaw. I'm not sure, did the slides show? I know, but do the slides show for like, they'll come up? Oh, I know, but I'm going to talk about all 3 at once first. But I want to, okay. All right, so I'll do the first motion first, and then I'm going to talk about all 3. I move that the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, Section 702040, the Northborough zoning bylaw as printed in the warrant. Okay. You return, don't control it here. Okay. Articles 56 and 58 were drafted in response to the state's Affordable Housing Act passed last year. One of the requirements of the act was to allow the creation of accessory dwelling units by right. This is mandatory. If you don't know what an accessory dwelling unit is, they're sometimes called an in-law apartment, granny pod, or a backyard cottage. This unit, it will be on the same lot as the principal dwelling unit, but it is subordinate in size. The first article, Article 56, is just to change the definition of dwelling unit to match what the state definition of a dwelling unit is. So that's it. The planning board recommended Article 56, 5-0. Are there any questions?
And the planning board's opinion on Article 56?
Yep, it was unanimous, 5-0.
Hearing no questions or concerns, let's move on to Article 57.
Okay, I can vote on Article 56 and 57 together, but Article 58 should be separate because it needs a 2/3 vote. I move that the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 703050, as printed in the warrant. Okay. Article 57 goes with Article 56, as it is permitting, it's the permit of the ADU. Article 58 will be, list all the conditions that are part of the accessory dwelling unit bylaw, but Article 57 regulates the type of review required. For an accessory dwelling unit that is inside a principal dwelling or attached to a principal dwelling, the permitting would go through the building inspector. So he would do a building permit and you would work with him. If it is a detached structure, which would be a new structure on your property, there will be a site plan required, but it's with the technical review, so it's with staff. It's not with the planning board. It's just you would meet with the staff, including the building inspector and planning director, and it would go that way. Does anybody have any questions about that? Or about accessory bylaw, accessory dwelling units in general?
And before we recognize microphone B, I assume that there's an opinion from the planning board as well?
Yes, the planning board recommended 5-0 to approve that.
Thank you. Now microphone B.
Lisa Maselli, 13 Maple Street. I'm a little confused as to, is this what the state law is doing and we are matching the state law? Or are we changing what the state law is doing? Or could we, if it is the state, could we change that as well?
We had a choice. We had a choice that could go to the planning board for review, or it could go to staff for review. And we chose the staff so it would streamline the process for residents.
So all right, fine, thanks.
The state let us select what we wanted to do. Are there any other questions?
So we're voting with these two articles combined, or are we doing them individually?
We could vote, I was told we could vote combined.
Let's make sure we have the graphic for, we can do them individually, because you don't have it together,
Sure, I
right?
can do them individually.
We're going to do them individually, okay? Article 56 is first. Okay. Zoning bylaw, Section 7-02-040, definitions. And because this is a zoning bylaw change, it is a 2/3 vote. And voting is open.
have to go back to the slide.
Looks like voting has been completed. Let's see the results, please. And Article 56 passes by the required 2/3 vote. Article 57 is what we're voting on now. '57 is also a 2/3 vote, and the voting is open. Looks like the voting is complete. Let's see the results, please. And Article 57 passes by the required 2/3 vote.
Okay. I move that the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 705020C as printed in the warrant. How do I go back to the slideshow? Okay. Someone, all right. So as I mentioned before, the Affordable Homes Act of 2024 was passed last August. And Section 7 and Section 8 amend the zoning act to create the definitions and create the regulations for accessory dwelling units. The provisions within our current zoning bylaws conflict with the new state law. So these articles that we're talking about tonight, 56 through 58, are intended to bring Northborough into compliance. Some of the changes that we have are accessory dwelling units. Now it eliminates the requirement that the property owner must live in the principal dwelling. Right now that is a requirement, but that changes. It also modifies the size of the ADU. Right now, we allow 800 square feet or 25% by right. This will change to 900 square feet or half the gross floor area of the single-family home, whichever is smaller. It also specifies that an ADU shall not be owned separate from the principal dwelling unit, which the ADU is associated. Only one ADU is allowed per lot. Does anybody have any questions?
And the planning board's recommendation?
The planning board recommended 5-0 to approve this.
Thank you.
bylaw.
Yes, Ed.
Mike Powell, 360 Whitney Street. The first, a clarification. In the explanation, it says the maximum size is now capped at 800 square feet, down from 900 square feet, which I believe contradicts what's on the screen and also the text in the article.
It must be a typo. Where did you see it?
The explanation in the warrant says the maximum size of an ADU is now capped at 800 square feet, down from 900 square feet.
Yes, that must be a typo.
Okay.
But that's not
So the intention is 900.
the intention is 900 square feet.
And the second is, do ADUs count as part of Northborough's total housing inventory such that they will count against our subsidized housing inventory and create a risk of a 40B violation?
They will.
And if so, is there anything we can do about that?
No. They do not allow you to consider them as affordable housing, as they want to create as much housing as the state as possible, and they thought putting the affordable housing restriction on them would prohibit people from building them.
But if I and 10 of my neighbors go and create ADUs, even if we don't rent them out, even if we just use them for literally my mother-in-law, then that could cause the town of Northborough to be subject to 40B.
I agree. I went to a lot of meetings about this in the past 6 months, and many of the towns have the same fare.
Okay.
That
thank
will
you.
bring them below the 10%.
Thank you.
You're
Yes.
awesome. So go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, why does it have to be one unit? Why can't you have 10 or 20? Just, let's think about not that these laws exist, because why? And think about that. This supposedly educated town Many of you have PhDs and stuff like that, but you can't answer why, because you're unable to critically think, because you think like a robot. If blah, 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 blah. Why can't we have more than one accelerated unit? Give me a reason. One of these educated people, get on that stand and tell me why.
Yes, please.
Hi, Sharon Berube, 359 Green Street. So is the ADU basically going to replace the in-law?
Yes.
So how would that work if somebody has a current in-law, which was always acceptable by the town and saying living area connecting to living area, even just by a hallway, and then let's say they want to put up a detached?
They can do another one.
They can do another one.
If it fits all the criteria that the state is calling for now, then it would fall under this and it would be your one. But I learned in the classes that if you have an in-law apartment now and it doesn't fall under all the same criteria,
Yeah.
you do a second one.
Well, is that the only instance where a second one is allowed?
As far as I know.
So in a sense, the in-law would be grandfathered? Or if somebody doesn't have an in-law, are they allowed to do an in-law and then down the road, in addition, do an ADU, detached?
No, because this is replacing that wording, so it would be the same thing. So
Okay.
now if you do an in-law apartment, you would have to follow this accessory dwelling unit
Okay.
bylaw.
Okay. And then I just have two other quick questions. One is, I noticed in a lot of the wording that it said, if feasible, for it to go on the side of the yard or the back. Well, there's a lot of gray area with if feasible, so that leads me to believe that somebody could technically put an ADU in their front yard.
They could.
Good.
If it falls under the setbacks that we have in town, the state was very clear on they don't want many restrictions on these.
Yeah, that's
So-
just a tough, that's a tough look, having, ADUs scattered on people's front lawns.
It is.
And then my third one, and I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but what is the regulation as far as, I know you can rent the ADUs, but what about like an Airbnb situation?
You can do that.
You can?
They're looking for more housing and more,
Good for the state. They did
Okay.
something right.
so you can. But there hasn't been a real problem with Airbnbs yet in Northborough. We could, in the future, if there was a problem with Airbnbs in Northborough, we could change the bylaw and you are allowed to prohibit them.
So the town reserves the right to regulate an Airbnb or something with an ADU, or no?
We would have to come in front of town meeting again.
Yep.
And we would have to update the bylaw to say no short-term rentals.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but for right now, we left it open because there wasn't a problem.
Okay, thank you for the info.
One more thing. This woman should be town administrator, by the way. Give her a hand. I almost, please define affordable housing.
I don't have that.
Yeah, it's based on the property values around. It's all to maintain your property values. That's what it's about. It's about money. It's not about housing people when people are living on the streets. You all should be embarrassed. Absolutely embarrassed. God bless you.
You are out of bounds. Thank you. I didn't hear. I have terrible acoustics. I will not tolerate inappropriate language in my town meetings. This is my meeting, okay? Officers, can you please remove him from the hall?
What about honesty? Deception, equivocation, love of money is the root of all evil. Nehemiah chapter 5, usury, interest on loans. Right? I was very, very angry. You were charging interest. Read the Bible. And freedom of speech. When you put money over freedom of speech, you all should be embarrassed and ashamed of yourself.
Again, I apologize to this body. If we may continue and get back to Article 58, I have a question here.
I do. Chris Brandon, 22 Shoreland Drive. Just a follow-up question. So existing in-law apartments, things like that, if those can be considered ADUs, if somebody decides to change that, like they want to update it or something like that, have to get a permit, does that then become an ADU that would go against the towns, that would make us subject to the affordable housing?
I don't know, Mr. Federico, do you have that answer? Like if they changed it?
If somebody has to file a permit to change an ADU, does that then or to change an existing, like a grandfathered in-law apartment, does that now become an ADU that adds to the town's housing that makes us required to get that?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bob Federico. I'm the building inspector and zoning enforcement officer. Please repeat the question.
Sure. Because the additional of ADUs, if people are adding ADUs, that's going to increase the housing in the town, requiring us to obtain additional affordable housing, correct?
ADUs come into affordable housing, but it has to meet the definition of an accessory dwelling unit. Number one, it has to conform to all requirements of the building code. Second of all, an accessory dwelling unit must have separate and distinct entries and entrances from the original house. So if you have a house and off to the side you've got a little hallway and it's got a kitchen and a bedroom and whatever, that is not considered an ADU.
Okay.
If you want to turn it into an ADU, you're going to have to take that out, get two separate and distinct egress paths, and the building code requires a 1 hour firewall separation between the main building, and the ADU.
So my question is, if there's a pre-existing unit on somebody's property that meets that qualification, but isn't counted as an ADU currently, meaning it's not adding additional housing to the town, which then would require us to have additional affordable housing. If somebody decides to change that property, renovate that, needs a permit, does that then qualify as that ADU under the new guidelines?
It's going to depend upon the project.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, we've recently had one house that was a colonial house, had a 2-car garage under, and they were able to convert the garage into an accessory dwelling unit. They were able to go through all the plans and processes, get me the 1 hour fire rating, 2 means of egress, and it qualifies as an accessory dwelling unit. We've had another one on Summer Street over the last summer. It was basically a standalone, but it is connected to an existing outbuilding. That was kind of a modular design that was plunked in place on a foundation. Again, met all the requirements of the state building code, and that, if that gets counted towards the affordable housing, fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Hearing no other questions or discussion on Article 58, I believe we're ready to vote. This is a simple majority vote, and the voting is open. Looks like the voting has been completed, and Article 58 passes by the required majority vote.
Okay.
Article 59.
Article 59, I move that the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 706030, as printed in the warrant. Okay. Article 59 establishes a lot shape factor. It's a mathematical formula. The article allows for some irregularity for reduced frontage and larger lots, as long as the irregular portion does not affect the lot's ability to meet minimum size and frontage requirements. The goal of this amendment is to ensure that the lots created for the building are reasonably shaped, property owners will better be able to use their property in site driveways, fences, sheds, swimming pools, and gardens if the lots are compact. Does anyone have any questions?
Before the questions, may I have the opinion of the planning board, please?
Sure, the planning board voted 5-0 to approve this.
Thank you. Are there any questions, any discussion on Article 59, please? Hearing none and seeing none. The voting is open. This is a 2/3 vote.
Forgot to vote.
Looks like the voting is complete. May we see the results, please? Article 59 passes by the required 2/3 vote.
Article 60, I move that the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 709010, as printed in the warrant.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you.
Article 60 is a land clearing and grading bylaw, Section 709010. It's a housekeeping item. Currently, right now, there were updates to the stormwater management and land disturbance permit, and applicants have to go to the Conservation Commission for that. Part of the old bylaw, they would also have to go through the planning board. We're trying to streamline this process, so now the applicant only would have to go through the Conservation Commission, and they don't have to go through two boards, including the planning board. Does anyone have any questions?
And the planning board's recommendation?
Oh, we voted 5-0 to recommend it.
Seeing no questions or discussion, we are ready to vote on Article 60. Again, this is a 2/3 vote, and voting is open. And it looks like the voting is complete. May we see the results, please? Article 60 passes by the required 2/3 vote.
Article 61, zoning bylaw, Section 709040, signs. I move that the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 709040, signs, as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded.
Okay. Hi. This is an update to the sign bylaw. We've been doing a couple. We did one last year. We did one probably the year before. This has to do with the downtown. It also permits a greater variety of sign types. We're adding awning signs, projecting blade signs, sandwich board signs. There are many businesses out of compliance right now. This will bring them into compliance. It also provides some new and updated definitions for various types of signs, and those were included in the warrant. And it provides a mechanism for the Design Review Committee to review signs in the downtown business district only. And that was going along with the downtown revitalization efforts. Happy birthday.
And the planning board's recommendation.
Oh, the planning board voted 4-1 to approve this article.
Thank you. You look like you're having a birthday
Do I
today.
look older than I did yesterday?
Yeah.
I bet you feel it. I do.
Well, Fran Baxter and 76 Cedar Hill Road. It wouldn't be a town meeting if I didn't at least have a question about zoning. And I mean, I know that it's been a work in progress to do the signs for a long time, and I'm not going to try to look at all the underlines and stuff. I am curious, though, about one of the concerns that had been ongoing for a very long time was the signs that are in windows, and that when people advertising, you know, the sales. Has that been addressed in these changes so that they can or cannot? Because I know that when you look at Tommy Lowe's, and I know he's not in downtown business, but he has a lot of advertisement on his front window. Has that been addressed in what way for the downtown area? And then having all these changes, are they going to be reasonably, will our zoning enforcement officer be able to reasonably enforce them?
Okay. This was a months-long project with the Design Review Committee, and we worked with Mr. Federico and Ms. Connors. The update to the window signs was actually last year. So, oh, sorry. The update to the sign bylaw was actually, the window signs was last year. So 10% of all the windows are allowed to have signs in them, but it isn't in this year's. There's no change to the window signs this year. I'm sorry, I forgot your second question. Whether it's enforced. Well, everybody right now is grandfathered, and so I would think the new bylaws would be enforceable, but it's going forward.
I apologize. No, I meant with the changes that you are making this year, is it reasonable to think that our building inspector, zoning enforcement officer will be able to enforce them in addition to his other responsibilities? Is it making it more difficult, or is it actually making it easier?
Well, I think in this bylaw, we actually made some more signs come into conformance. We're allowing
Okay.
more signs.
Okay, good. All right.
So, and I mean, you'd have to ask Mr. Federico.
Right.
The majority of these changes were definitions, and I don't think we were making anything more difficult.
Okay. I mean, you actually answered it when you said that you were creating definitions to meet what already exists. So now they are in conformance, which does make it easier.
Right.
Thank you. Okay.
Yep.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Hi, Andy Clark from 493 Main Street. Just on the Part 15, awning signs, I just want to understand that correctly, because it says cannot extend beyond any top or side edge of the facade or cornice or molding on which it is attached. And I just didn't know if it projects beyond the edge of part of the purpose of an awning is it projects beyond the edge of the roof, so it prevents dripping, so people can access a building and be covered under it while they're there. So does that mean that that an awning can't extend beyond like the drip line of a building or a facade, or is it just can't extend beyond a small architectural element within a specific building? If you looked, I think on your slide you had the neighborhood tavern,
right?
And that thing extends beyond the roof line so that it protects water, it keeps water off that. And I just didn't know if is that the meaning of it, or maybe our building inspector can
Right,
can
Mr.
interpret
Federico,
that more
do you mind
correctly.
answering it? I mean, what we were really doing was allowing signs on the awnings, but awnings are part of a building, so I don't think we were trying to change anything to do with building code.
I didn't know whether this was new bylaw. Just asking for clarification on that. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Up until this proposed article. Awnings, signs on awnings were not allowed unless you got a variance, okay? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Too close.
All right. Up until tonight, if this passes, prior to tonight, awning signs were not allowed. You had to get variance by the ZBA, okay? What this is hoping to do is, awnings, number one, are allowed under the building code, all right? You don't need a permit if it's less than 54 inches that sticks out straight. Obviously, an awning is to protect somebody from walking underneath, drip from the roof. You're right. I think what the intent is that it doesn't stick out from the edge of the building. Like if the awning goes to the corner of the building, you're not going beyond it.
Okay, yeah, no, I didn't understand the exact terminology, and I was just asking for clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, I had my head scratching a while, too.
Thank you very much.
These are the hard ones.
Yes, please.
Sharon Berube, 359 Green Street. So I guess my concern about the whole sign ordinance is how is it enforced? Is it enforced? And roughly how many, I don't know, quote unquote citations or whatever you do happened within the last year? I mean, I see signs up all over town that really shouldn't be there, according to the current bylaw. I know Westboro has a great system that they use to stay on top of it, but what do we do?
Westboro has 4 building inspectors to look at it. We've got 1.5. I have sent out some warnings and orders to remove signs.
Yep.
I have 3 properties right now that are in violation. They will be getting a notification within the next week or so. I have to be absolutely honest with you. If I'm permitting and inspecting brand-new houses, signs, I'm not going to get to right away. Okay, it's just the way it is. If somebody wants to complain, we have an online complaint system. I can investigate it, and I can write it out. I don't drive every street every day. When I'm driving, I'm keeping my eyes on the road, so I may not notice a sign that's out of whack. If you guys see something, go online, send me the complaint. I'm happy to investigate it. If it is a violation, I'll write it up and send it.
Yeah, I think at times it makes the town look very messy and looks like a big yard sale, quite frankly. And I know Westboro, they do utilize the police a little bit. They'll drive by. If there's 3 open house signs, they'll knock on the door and say, hey, go take them down. Just keep the one up in front of the house. But I would, and I can appreciate.
What really makes it messy here in town is when somebody puts up a yard sale sign on a telephone pole and I don't say anything, and 2 weeks later it's still there.
Exactly.
I have been known to take those signs
Yep.
after the yard sale is over and return them to the front lawn of the offender.
Sounds good.
I mean, I don't mind having a sign up for a yard sale or whatever.
Yeah.
Some contractor signs are allowed by right for a certain amount of time, provided that they're doing the work. If I see the sign there 2 or 3 weeks after the job, I will notify the homeowner.
I drive by one now for the last 2 years, driving home every night, go right by it. I can't imagine their remodel has taken 2 years, but, so I was just curious,
Well,
and
it
I can
depe-
appreciate the fact
it
that you're
depends
only
on the
one guy.
remodel, okay?
But maybe, as a suggestion, we could look into getting you some supplemental help.
I've been
to
asking.
deal with that.
I've been asking, I'm getting off topic. I've been asking for a full-time assistant for 8 years,
Yeah,
and it hasn't happened,
yeah,
okay? So we have to live with what we can do.
right, right.
And honestly, again, I have to prioritize.
Yeah.
If I'm dealing with a fire response, or if I'm dealing with somebody who's hoarding.
I totally understand. Yeah. So maybe I could implore the select board to maybe come up with another option, not necessarily a full-time assistant, but another option to help enforce the sign ordinance. But, okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's that? I'm not looking for work, but I would be willing to help out. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any more questions or discussion on Article 61, so I believe we're ready to vote. Like most of these articles, this is a 2/3 majority, and the voting is open. Looks like the voting has stopped, so let's see what the results are. And Article 61 passes by the required 2/3 vote. Article 62. Mr. Zeiton, before you move forward, may I remind you that these people are hopeful that this will be a speedy presentation. They'll be able to vote and be able to go home and see their families.
45 minutes.
No
only.
pressure, no pressure.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, to add a new Section 7-10-070 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded.
Hi, everybody. I'm Anthony Zeiton. I'm on the Planning Board. Article 62 is intended to help maintain Northborough's affordable housing stock at or above 10% of the total housing inventory. Staying above this threshold is critical because falling below would allow for developers to invoke Chapter 40B. Chapter 40B enables developers to bypass most local zoning regulations, with the exception of Title V and Conservation Commission restrictions. Potentially leading to undesirable and less controllable developments. Currently, Northborough's affordable housing stock is at 10.28%, so we're getting very critically close to that 10%. We also have a development coming in that's been approved for 88 units, which will really eat into that percentage. This is leaving the town very vulnerable to 40B developments. This amendment would require that any new development of 10 units or more must include at least 15% affordable housing. To encourage compliance, the amendment offers a density bonus as incentive. And if, for example, if a parcel could normally accommodate 10 units under existing zoning, the developer would be allowed to build 12 units in that same parcel. 10 market rate units and then plus 2 affordable units. Originally only 10 would be allowed. So this accomplishes a couple things. One, we get more affordable housing, and we protect the town's bylaws from unfriendly developments. Any questions?
And the opinion or recommendation from the Planning Board?
The Planning Board unanimously supported this article.
Thank you. Any questions, any discussions? You know, Mr. Zeiton's on the clock. If not, I believe we are prepared to vote on Article 62. Again, this is a 2/3 vote, and the voting is open.
Permit granting authority.
It looks like the voting is complete. May we see the results, please? And Article 62 passes by the required 2/3 vote. Before we do that, I have a couple of announcements to make, and one of those announcements is all of those committees that submitted reports to me may now present those reports to the body. No, just kidding, just kidding.
Mr. Moderator, I'm so sorry to delay us just 1 second, a point of clarification maybe. Earlier in today's meeting, a gentleman was asked to leave. to the extent I was making any noise over there, I apologize to the meeting. I was really trying to help the situation. I understand he used some profanity, but my understanding, Mr. Moderator, is that was not the reason he was asked to leave. It was the loud voice and the interrupting repeatedly throughout the meeting. And the reason I ask that is because I think, as we know, it would not be lawful to exclude someone for using profanity in a public meeting, but it may be if he was being interruptive. And so I understood that he was being asked to leave because of the interruptions and not because of the profanity. Is that right?
I thank you for your legal advice.
I'm not giving legal
Okay,
advice.
And it's not necessarily one particular situation. My responsibility is to make sure that the people that make up this town meeting have an environment where they are comfortable and do not feel like that there are many interruptions.
Understood.
I made the determination that it was a series of interruptions that brought that about.
Thank you. And I just wanted to make sure that, in case anyone's ever looking at this, what was the reason? It wasn't just a particular word or content. It was a series of things. And I just wanted to do that maybe to protect us all, actually. So thank you. I just wanted to do that.
Thank you. I heard a motion to dissolve. And that has been seconded. With that being said, this meeting is dissolved.